I was going to mention Ukraine because we started talking about that and how quickly we turned off it. But
you see, Zelensky's asking for credit now because we won't give him any more money.
Yeah.
Give me credit and I'll pay you back.
Yeah, that's not a good road to go down. But look, they're in a bind. I was going to mention that UK intelligence they came out with a report looking at the total number of casualties on the Russian side so far, and they are basing it on. They've done a fairly exhaustive study, and they're basing it on. They think it's about 300,000, right? 300,000 casualties. Not all dead. I mean, I think there's 120,000 of those are dead. But to put that in context, right? It's not even 2 years yet for Russia in terms of this war, and so 120,000 dead. They lost in Afghanistan, which for them was 10 years. They lost about 15,000 or so. Again, according to estimates, right? I mean, that's because neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are being transparent for, reasons that you can imagine in terms of morale, but they're not being transparent about their numbers. On the Ukraine side, it's, again, decent U.S. estimates. It could be about 70,000 or so casualties.
So it's a lot more Russians than Ukrainians?
A lot more, but they have a lot more personnel, right? I mean, you think about it, they're 3-1, right, in terms of outnumbering the Ukrainians on the battlefield. They've got a...
But that's pretty extraordinary, though.
It is. It speaks to poor command and control. It speaks to poor battle management, right? There's a lot of reasons. It also speaks to just a complete lack of concern over the lives of a lot of the soldiers they're throwing out there. Those numbers, by the way, they don't even involve the Wagner Group or private contractor groups. So who knows how many of those folks went. But the problem is that, you look at that and you go, that's awful, right? But it shows Putin's mindset. He doesn't care, right? He's willing to keep throwing people into this grinder and say, yeah, fine. So it does look like, and the winter months are approaching, which slows everything down. It does look like this thing is going to go on for a while. And I mean, unless they can come up with some settlement. But right now, the Russian military is pushing offensively, right? They're trying to actually regain and gain some ground, right, before the winter months really set in. The counteroffensive that Ukraine's put together has been, somewhat disappointing, to put it mildly. And then during the winter, what's going to happen? The Russians are going to spend their time attacking Ukraine energy targets to try to freeze them out during the winter, which they tried last year and had some success with. They're also going to dig in. They're going to harden their lines where they're at. You got the Ukrainians. They're, things slow down. They're probably going to end up focused most of the time on supply chain, right? If they can cut the supply chain or the supply line, for the Russian military, that's a big win, right? And that's why they've been so keen to get more advanced artillery systems in there, because they want to be able to hit those facilities. They want to be able to hit the lines. They want to be able to hit command and control. Because I think they realize, they're getting into one of their generals actually said this, and then Zelensky had to come out and clean up and say, no, we're not in a stalemate. But one of the generals said, we're kind of approaching a stalemate here. So, but to your point, all those people that are out there waving flags saying we stand with Ukraine, nobody gives a fuck right now.
It's over.
Right? It's over. I mean, so, and the Republicans are, I always thought the Republicans wanted to defeat communism and defeat, somebody like Putin. But, they're the ones breaking ranks right now saying, we don't want to spend it. No, their point is we want to see transparency. We want to know where that money's going, and that's a good thing. Some of them are just kind of reading political tea leaves and saying, I think the general public's getting tired of this. Some of them are legitimately saying we're spending way too much money on Ukraine. Why aren't we spending it here?
And what kind of accounting do we have on the money that goes over to Ukraine?
Well, and here's where it's complicated in the sense that we spend a lot of time berating Ukraine for being very corrupt, and it has been. It's been very corrupt, and so that's part of the problem. Is we knew going into this that they had a real corruption issue. Right? And then we give them $80+ billion, and we don't necessarily have the best accounting, right? Going back to we're giving $10 billion to Iran, but by God, we're going to know exactly where every penny's spent. No, we're not.
Didn't they catch one guy in Ukraine that embezzled $1 billion and they just fired him? That's it? They didn't arrest him? They didn't?
They've got some of their military personnel now who are responsible for procurement. They've got them in jail and coming up on charges, and they'll probably be convicted. Now, they have to say they've stamped out the problem is ridiculous. Look, Zelensky knows that he's got to be seen as being very aggressive towards corruption because that's going to keep the money flowing, right? Mm-hmm. And he desperately needs that. If he doesn't have U.S. assistance and U.S. aid, this thing goes from being a potential stalemate to it swings the other way in Russia's favor, and not in a really lengthy period of time. So he knows he's got to be seen as doing everything possible to stamp out corruption and also having the optic of stamping out corruption, right? Regardless of how successful he may be. But it's a real problem for him.